Welcome back to the program, and we're saying welcome back to the program to that lady right there, Rekha Basu. Welcome back to the country, young lady.
Thank you so much. It's good to be back.
So how long were you gone officially?
I was gone for 2 weeks, and half of that time gets eaten up in, just flying to India and back, and then the jet lag and the time difference, which really, just as you get older, gets harder and harder to withstand. So I've been back now in the country for about a week, but I'm still not on the right sleeping schedule.
Because what's the difference?
Like exactly opposite. 10 and a half, depending on whether it's daylight savings or not, 11 and a half hours.
Yeah, and then we had the daylight savings switch.
Right, which happened right after I got back.
Perfect.
So, and there was a piece in the New York Times op-ed section on Sunday about how time changes can really mess with people's minds.
Yeah.
So if my columns are not making any sense,
blame it on that.
That's what the problem is. Now, did you do the melatonin trick?
I did not.
No? Okay.
I should have, but they talked about melatonin as being a really good antidote. I actually just took some sleeping pills to try to sleep at night, but I don't like to do that very much, so I haven't been doing it since getting back enough, and then I'm still waking up at ungodly hours.
Well, I know since you were gone, you probably miss all the talk in the news around here about what's happening politically.
And are a much happier person.
I noticed my disposition was sunny. I was cheerful. I was cracking jokes with friends. I was so happy, and then come back and see what's happening in the news, and it's like, oh God. It's but I really think there is a mental health issue there. Like, people do get really stressed out by reading day after day what's going on. And in India, it's not like India is any bucket of roses either. They have their own leader who's making his own problems, but at least that's not our everyday problem. So you can talk to people about that and see the parallels with theirs and ours, but you're not living and breathing 24/7.
As you say, are they constantly connected like we are with our massive devices surrounding us at all times?
More and more, at least in the in my family circle, middle class Indians are
staying connected?
Are very connected. And actually, even rural poor Indians have cell phones. It's amazing. They have different kinds of cell phones, the kind that you buy and then throw away that are loaded at the front end. But everybody is connected, it seems. So it's quite amazing.
All right, so when you got back, what's the first thing that you had to get caught up on? Because you knew you had to get caught up on something that's happening around here.
I mean, I just can't escape Steve King. I'm sorry to say. He plagues me. He follows me around everywhere I go.
Why do you say that?
So, it's bad enough, as I wrote in the opening of my column today. It's all of this kind of demagoguery that's been coming out of the White House lately with Trump and his bans on Muslims and his, this on Latinos and whatnot. And so I think that Steve King was starting to feel like he was almost beside the point, and so he had to get back in the game, and he had to reassert his white supremacist credentials. And so he came roaring back with this thing upholding the Netherlands' Geert Wilders, who is, this far-right politician who is completely white supremacist and wants to ban the Quran and ban Muslims from his country. And Steve King is like tweeting things, praising him and applauding him and saying things like, if we don't do something in this country, then we'll just be dealing with babies that look like somebody else's instead of our own, meaning of color, of some shades of color. How offensive can you get? I mean, now he's picking on babies. And for years and years, people have been defending him on the grounds that, he can say what he wants. He says, that's what Branstad said the other day. Our governor said, Steve King, he always says things. But he always says things, but take them seriously. This is white supremacy. He is holding up and heralding a white supremacist. Call it what it is. What are we going to do about it?
Yeah, we were talking to the party scoopers about this, and, and they had similar comments to this. And our question to them is he doing this just to get attention and to get back into the news?
I think it's what he really believes, and I also think, he's trying. Actually, as I wrote, he was there before Trump was saying these inflammatory, ridiculous, racist things. He was doing that since he was in the Iowa legislature back in the 90s, and he was like making fun of Latinos as having cantaloupe thighs and saying they were, so muscular because they were crossing the border as drug runners. And what was he saying about when Obama was elected, that the optics of this would have terrorists dancing in the street because it was the first black president of the United States. He's been saying this for so long, and he's always been getting attention for it, but all of a sudden the attention has now shifted to Trump and the crazy things that he's saying. So King is feeling a little left out, and he's saying, man, I was the first bigot here. Give me a little credit.
Getting pushed out of the way, maybe?
Exactly. So there he goes. So I guess one of my questions in my column, and I'd love to know what the party people said to you, is what is the Republican Party going to do about this? Has there not come a point, I mean, there have been many points, but is this not a point at which you just say, enough with him, we are dissociating ourselves from him completely, we are denouncing him, we don't want him representing the face of this party?
Well, this is what they said yesterday, and if you missed that, you can check out weareiowa.com because it was an interesting conversation. They said it's amazing how you forget, because they'll come out now and they'll say, even Trump coming out and saying, I don't agree with what this person said, but when election comes around, it's like, oh, you're a part of my party, yes, I will back you in for re-election, as opposed to being like, no, you said these things, I don't believe in them, I'm not giving you my support.
So they were talking about his voter, the voters in his district.
No, the politicians that are backing him, like Governor Branstad and everybody.
Right.
It's like they might say we don't believe in what he is saying at this time, but when it comes to the point of being, re-election time, they'll stand behind him and say, yes, we support you. So it's like you got to kind of pick and choose if you do believe in what he's doing or you don't, because you say one thing, but then your actions say something else.
Okay, so just to clarify, these were not party representatives you were talking to yesterday.
No, there was a Democratic and a Republican.
Political analysts.
Yeah,
right.
Oh, okay. I thought they were party officials. Okay, no, because I called Jeff Kaufman, the head of the Iowa Republican Party, to say, okay.
It was Jeff Link and Craig Robinson.
Okay, got it. Yeah, no, I mean, and I completely agree with what you're saying.
And what did Jeff say?
And so he actually spoke through a spokesman, and it was through email because he wasn't in town that day. And he did, and what I wanted to know was, in his press release that he sent out after these latest Steve King comments, he said, I disagree with Steve King, but then he went on to lambaste David Duke, the former Klan leader, KKK leader, who was saying, yay, Steve King, God bless Steve King, and you guys, we should all move to Iowa or something if you're looking for a place to move to. And he slammed David Duke in his remarks, saying, we don't want him and his kind here. But it was just, we disagree with Steve King. That is so polite and so mild. It's like, I can disagree with you on what shoes look nicer on me. I mean, that's just not as far as a politician needs to go. And so I said, why? Why are you? And he said, well, it's because David Duke said he wants to come here and we don't want him here and he's not welcome here. And then they brought up, and it is true, in 2015, on July 4th, there were some parades in Marion County, and they had Confederate flags flying.
Okay.
And Jeff Kaufman at that time denounced them and actually pressured a couple of local Republican Party officials to resign because they had endorsed this and had actually done this.
We remember that, yeah.
Right? So good for him. So I'm saying, yes, I'm glad. But Steve King also flies the Confederate flag on his desk, or at least he has.
He did.
Right? I don't know if he's, as I said, I don't know if he still does.
No, it's gone now.
Is it gone? Okay. But, so when he does that, he gets a pass. So why can't they just say he does not speak for the party, we don't like him. If you vote for him, you are not, doing it as a Republican, because that's not what our values are. And then, Terry Branstad, as we were saying before, just says things like, oh, well, it's Steve King. Steve King always says these kinds of things. Well, so denounce it. Say something a little bit firmer.
See, we're just wondering, since it started such a long time ago, it was something where he just tested the water and got away with it. And
he was grandfathered in.
And tested it a little bit further, exactly.
Yeah, and so now, you're right. And since nobody ever really stands up to him except the left, what does he do? He just escalates it to the point where he's actually praising.
But aren't we doing exactly what he wants? We're talking about him.
We're paying attention to him.
Definitely talking about it. Look, she's got his name in big bold type right here on her article.
If what you're saying is true, aren't we doing exactly what he's wanting right now? And that's keeping him alive and going strong in his district.
I think he's alive and going strong anyway, no thanks to me or any of us who are criticizing him. I think when he says things like this, he has to be called out on them because he's hurting people. He's hurting people of color. He's hurting Muslims.
We asked the party scoopers this yesterday. Do you think this latest tweet is a game changer?
No. What did they say?
No.
No, I don't think anything is a game changer.
They said more people spoke out this time.
About this one,
when it's going up to the president level, obviously more are speaking out than they ever have before.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I don't think it's going to hurt him at all.
But not in Iowa. And this is what I really want to know from his voters, and I put the question to them in my column. Is it because you all, like some people are characterizing, is it because the voters in his district are actually racist and they just want to thumb their noses at liberals or at people who are politically correct or who are, for transgender people having access to whatever bathroom they choose or all of that? Is it these social issues? Because some people are saying, about Trump. You know, some commentators, observers are saying, well, if Trump doesn't deliver on his economic promises and on his promise of, you know, getting rid of Obamacare, then he's dead in the water, he won't get reelected. And this analyst who I quoted today talking about Trump said, I think that's not true. He lives in a very small town, Kentucky, in western Kentucky. And he said the people here will vote for him regardless because they are just so anti-political correctness, liberal agenda. It's all social issues that they think about. It's not even about their own economic self-interest. And I'm asking Steve King's voters, is that why you continue to support him?
As I say, for someone who's from Northwest Iowa, I'd like to say we're not racist. I would like to believe that we're not for the majority, but we're just used to voting for who we're used to voting. He hasn't done anything to ruffle the feathers besides saying things like this in our communities in that district.
Yeah, but
he hasn't done anything to hurt. He hasn't done anything positive, I'll say, but he also hasn't done anything to hurt anybody.
But
so they see that and they're used to it, and it's like it's a name they recognize, and I feel like it goes in. I wouldn't call the people in the Northwest District racist.
They mentioned there were so many of his party supporters, just the party supporters where he is.
Yeah.
That's the reason for his being elected over and over again, because of the party affiliation.
But why isn't someone able to mount an effective primary challenge to him in the Republican Party?
That's the better question.
Why doesn't that happen?
That's the better question.
I mean, why do they stick? They hear the things he says, and they're at some point, voters have to take responsibility for what they've put in office. As I said, he is really doing damage to people, and he's doing damage to the Republican Party name. So it's not like they're being loyal Republicans when they keep, putting him back in office. Makes Iowa look bad. It really rankles me so much that we can continue to have this man representing us in Congress and saying these kinds of things and getting away with it because everybody lets him get away with it.
Well,
there you go.
We'll see if anything changes.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Just gotta keep an eye on it. All right.
Yes. Well, as I said, see, I was so chill when I was
Grab the register, 15A.
and now she's back.
Okay,
Look at
where
me,
it is. We will be right back. This is CW Iowa Live in West Des Moines.